Hello, students, and welcome to our lesson on the metric system. Now, if you, like me, were born in America, you have probably often been taught that what we use in America is the greatest measuring system on the planet. But then you probably also heard that the rest of the world kind of disagrees with us. And what hopefully I'm going to illuminate for you in this lesson is that the metric system is a very, very good system. And converting from different units of measure in the metric system are, well, it's extremely easy, which makes it a very good system. So in this lesson, what we're going to be talking about is how to convert between the different prefixes of different units of measure. So we'll talk about meters, grams, and liters as units of measure, but then we're going to be talking about all the different prefixes that go along with those and how to convert between them, which, again, as I said, is very easy because they are all just powers of 10. All right, so let's get started. The standard system of measurement. In the United States, we use what is called the standard or English system of measurement. Lengths are commonly measured in inches, feet, yards, and miles. Weights are commonly measured in ounces, pounds, and tons. And volumes for liquids are commonly measured in ounces, cups, liters, quarts, and gallons. For solids, volumes may also be measured in cubic lengths such as cubic inches, cubic feet, cubic yards, cubic miles, so on and so on. And then our temperatures are measured in Fahrenheit, which is not an easy word to spell. So if you were like me, had to look up how to spell Fahrenheit, please don't feel bad. It's a little bit of a tough word. All right, so now what I want to point out is that I literally teach this subject and I live in America and have my whole life. And I look at these units of measure, ounces, cups, liters, quarts, and gallons, and I cannot easily tell you how many of each of those units are inside of another. So for instance, how many ounces are in a cup? This is not something that in America we really stress in our educational system. And my belief is because our units of measure are not particularly convenient to use. What we're about to see, though, is that in the metric system, as long as you can remember the acronyms, which there is a little phrase I'm going to teach you that'll help you remember them, as long as you can remember those acronyms, or sorry, those prefixes is what I meant to say, then you will have no trouble converting between different measurements. All right, so let's get into it. Most countries outside of the US use the metric system of measurement, where we have meters are the base measure for length, grams are the base measure for mass, and and liters are the base measure for liquid volume. For solid, volume may also be measured in cubic lengths, such as meters cubed. But generally speaking, the metric system uses meters, grams, and liters. So now temperature, we probably already know. We use Fahrenheit, but the metric system uses Celsius. And then unlike the standard system with different units to measure small, medium, and large amounts, the metric system simply adds prefixes to the base unit. So instead of ounces, cups, liters, quarts, and gallons, where we don't really have a clear understanding of how many are in each one, with the metric system, all they do is change the prefix, but they keep the unit the same. So meters, grams, and liters, those will be in the name of the unit of measure, but the prefix in front of the word meters, for instance, will tell you how big of an object you are dealing with. So what we need to do is introduce all these prefixes. So first, I'm just going to list out all the prefixes, then we'll talk about their symbols and what they means. So in order, we have the prefix kilo, then we have hecto, deca, oh, that is a D over there. Then we have the actual unit of measure. So this is where we would put the meters, the grams, or the liters. Then on the other side of the base unit, we have deci, centi, and milli. For symbols for each one of these, most of these are just the original letter. So for kilo, it's just a K. Hecto, it's just an H. We're going to skip deca for a second. And then we're going to go down to deci. Deci is just a D, centi is a C, and milli is an M. But in the middle there, deca is the weirdest one in my opinion, because if you notice, we have a deci already that uses D, and so we can't use D again for deca. So instead, we add an A to it. So it's D with a lowercase a is how we represent deca. And then for meters, grams, and liters, it's either M, G, or L respectively. So depending on which unit of measure we're using, we have one of those. So now we have that the three in the middle here, these are our base units. Okay, so we start with meters, grams, or liters, but then we modify those by putting a prefix in front of it, where if we put kilo in front of the word meter, for instance, that means 1,000 times meters. So a kilometer, or the way we normally say it, a kilometer, is 1,000 meters. If we put the prefix hecto in front of meter, that means 100 meters. Deca tells us to multiply by 10. And then we start going the opposite direction. We start going smaller. So deci is 1/10 of the base unit, centi is 1/100th, and milli is 1/1000th. If you have lived a life much like me, then you have probably heard of a centimeter and a millimeter and used those on various occasions. And you've probably heard of a kilometer. But if I'm being completely honest with you, I don't think in my whole life I've ever had a hectometer, a decameter, or a decimeter ever be relevant to something I'm doing. But I have very, very often seen these three units of measure. What we're going to learn though is that even if you've never used the couple in the middle, we still need to know what they are. That way, if we're converting, we can either go right past them, or if we actually have something that uses those units of measure, then of course we'll be able to find out what it represents. All right, so now we're going to combine those prefixes with the base unit. So starting off, we have a kilometer. A kilometer is going to have the symbol K because kilo. Okay, so the kilo right here tells me to write K. And then because it's a meter, we put M next to it. So km is going to represent kilometers. The number of meters in a kilometer, kilo means to multiply the base unit by 1,000. So there is 1,000 meters in a kilometer. The next one has hecto in front. The prefix, or sorry, the symbol for hecto is an H. So this is HM. And hecto means to multiply the base unit by 100. So there's 100 meters in a hectometer. Next, we have a decameter. The symbol for deca is DA. And then because it's a meter, we attach the M to it. So DAM is decameter. There is 10 meters in a decameter. The symbol for meter itself is just M. And there is, of course, 1 meter in a meter. And then we start going the other direction. So for decimeter, that would be DM. We have 1/10 meters in a decimeter. Centimeter would be cm, and we have 1/100th of a meter in a centimeter. And then millimeter is mm, which is 1/1000th, can't even talk, of a meter. All right, and we can do this for the other two base units also. So for grams, we're going to have a G, and for liters, we're going to have an L. So I encourage you now to take a second and go ahead and try to fill in this chart for these other meters or for these other units. And one thing that is, kind of an optional thing, I like to use this type of L when I do liters, but it's very important that you don't use a straight up and down L like that, like a normal lowercase L, because if you just put a straight line up and down, that looks like a 1. So please either use the cursive L like what I use, or if you use a capital L, that also works. We just want to make sure we know it's an L and not a 1. But pause the video, try to fill in the rest of this table real quick. All right, hopefully you paused. So now we're going to go straight through this. A kilogram is kg, and that is 1,000 grams. A hectogram is hg, that is 100 grams. A decagram is dag, and that is 10 grams. A gram is, of course, just 1 gram. A decigram is dg, that is 1/10 of a gram. A centigram is cg, that is 1/100th of a gram. And a milligram is mg, that is 1/1000th of a gram. For liters, it's going to look very similar. We have a kiloliter is, oh, and see what I did there? I wrote the wrong L. So KL represents 1,000 liters. A hectoliter, or HL, represents 100 liters. A deciliter is DAL, represents 10 liters. A liter is, of course, just one of itself. A deciliter is DL, that is 1/10 of a liter. A centiliter is CL, and that is 1/100th of a liter. And then a milliliter is ml, that is 1/1000th of a liter. So now we want to be able to convert between these. So luckily, the metric system is great because when we convert between units, all we have to do is multiply or divide by powers of 10. So multiplying or dividing the base by a power of 10 simply moves the decimal. That number, whatever the power is, it moves it that many spots to the left or right. So now we want to be able to easily remember these prefixes. So luckily, there's a nice easy phrase. King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk, where we can see by in the middle has a B as its first letter. That is the base unit. On each side of the base unit, we have 3 words. So on the left, we have K, H, and D, which stand for kilo, hecto, and deca. And on the right side, we have D, C, and M, which are going to stand for deci, centi, and milli. So if you can remember King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk, then you'll be able to remember the order that the prefixes go in. And so once we know what that order is, then it's actually going to be very easy to go from one unit of measure to the other. So all we're going to be having to do is move the decimal according to where it starts and needs to end in that order. All right, so for each of these, what I'm going to do is copy down this acronym, but just the letters in front. So King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk. I'm actually going to take that same prefix and just duplicate it for all of these problems because we're going to need it every single time. King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk. All right, now that I got that done, what we want to do is convert based on where we are in this list of letters and where we need to get to. So for the first one, we are converting 8 decameters to meters. So we are starting at this capital D on the left, and we want to go to meters, which is the base unit. So if we want to go from the red arrow to the blue arrow, and you know what, let me actually just draw one arrow that starts and ends where we want to go. So from the D to the B, we want to go 1 unit to the side. And specifically, we're going 1 unit to the right. So when we want to go 1 unit to the right, we're going to move the decimal 1 time to the right. So move decimal once, I'll put 1 time, 1 time to the right. So we're going to take the number 8 and we're going to convert it to be 0.8. Oh, sorry, I went the complete opposite direction. So we're going to take the number 8 and we're going to convert it to be 80, and this is going to be meters. So 8 decameters is 80 meters because we have 8 decameters, and we saw up here that a decameter is 10 meters. So if I have 8 decameters, then that means I have 8 times 10, so 80 meters. But down here, we don't have to worry about multiplying 8 times 10 necessarily, because multiplying times 10 is the same as just moving the decimal once to the right. So 8 decameters is 80 meters. All right, number 2, we want to convert 35.7 hectograms to grams. So I'm going to go from the H to the B. That means I need to move the decimal twice to the right. So 2 times to the right. So I'm going to take the number 35.7 and I'm going to convert it. If I move that decimal twice to the right, it's going to become 3570 grams. Notice that when I move the decimal to the right, my number gets bigger, okay? 35 hectograms is 3,570 grams. So when we move the decimal to the right, our number will always be getting bigger. All right, number 3, we want to convert 1.34 milliliters to liters. So we are going from the M all the way back to the base unit. So we need to go left 3 times. So 3 times left. So we're going to take 1.34 and convert it. If I move that decimal spot 3 times to the left, I have to add a couple zeros there. I'm going to get 0.00134. And that is how many liters I have. So notice, if I move that decimal 3 times to the left, 1, 2, 3 times, I have to put some zeros in there. So I get 0.0034 liters. Number 4, we want to convert 24 decimeters to kilometer meters. So we're starting at the D that's on the right, because remember the left D is dA. So we're starting with the D on the right and going all the way to kilometers. We have to go 1, 2, 3, 4 times left. So 4 times left. So I'm going to take 24, and this is going to get converted. If I move that decimal 4 times to the left, well, right now the decimal is next to the 4. So once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, I'm going to have to put 2 zeros in front of that 24. So this is equivalent to 0.0024 meters. Number 5, we want to convert 40 milligrams to grams. Milligrams is all the way on the right, and grams are our base unit. So I need to go 3 times to the left. So I'm going to take the number 40, and I'm going to convert it. When I move 3 times to the left, I start next to the 0. I go once, twice, 3 times. So I'm going to have to put an extra 0 there. So I end up with 0.040 grams. Where notice every time I'm moving to the left, my number is getting smaller. Number 6, we want to convert 3.2 liters to centiliters. So we are going to move from the base unit 2 spots to the right. So 2 times right. And when we do that, we're taking 3.2. And if I move that decimal twice to the right, once, twice, I have to put an extra 0 there. So I'm going to get 320 centiliters. Where notice the number got bigger because we were moving the decimal to the right. All right, so now I have a U-try for you. We want to arrange in ascending order, so from least to greatest, 320 milliliters, 68 liters, 5 hectoliters. So what we want to do is put these in all into the same unit. That way we can compare. So because we already have 68 liters here, we're going to leave that one alone. And what we're going to do is convert the other two into liters. So I'm going to copy this same acronym I had over here. I'll put it underneath these two actually. So for 320 milliliters, if I want to go from milliliters to liters, I'm going to go from the M to the B. And so that's going to cause me to go from 320 to, when I convert it, I move 3 spots to the left. And so that's going to become 0.32 liters. If I do the same thing, my 5 hectoliters, I move that decimal 2 spots to the right. So 5 is going to get converted to be 500 liters. So I have 0.32 liters, 68 liters, and 500 liters. Okay, so now what I'm comparing is these ones that have the same unit of measure. So if I were to write those in order, I would say that the smallest one was the milliliters we started with. So from smallest to largest, we're going to have 320 milliliters was the smallest because it only equates to 0.32 liters. Then 68 liters is the middle, and 5 hectoliters is the biggest because 5 hectoliters was 500 liters. So as long as we convert them all to have the same unit of measure, we can then just compare the numbers in front to see which one is the largest and the smallest. All right, that was our introduction to the metric system. Stay tuned for a lesson on dimensional analysis, which is where we'll practice converting not only between units within the metric system, but really between all sorts of units, like rotations per minute, centiliters per hour, all sorts of things. So this was an important step in the process, but really we learn the metric system. That way we can practice converting in dimensional analysis, which will be the next topic. All right, see you guys next time.